Hi, I am Jackie. This is my captain Wayne, and this is our floating home, CathayOz. We are on a plane to travel from our home in Sydney, Australia, all around the world by sea. We've worked all our lives, and now that we have retired, we want to see the world from the ground up, not from the air down. Please come with us as we sail CathayOz around the world. We've arrived in Thursday Island, which everyone calls TI. We have arrived a couple of weeks before the rally so that we can relax and have a good look around before leaving for Indonesia. TI is actually a series of islands just off the tip of Cape York, Australia. They are located in Torres Strait, which separates Australia from Papua New Guinea.
Torres Strait is a shallow waterway between Australia and Papua New Guinea. It divides the waters of the Coral Sea of the Pacific from the Arafura Sea of Asia. This is a place of strong currents, crocodiles, and the wonderful Torres Strait Islanders.
We are going to relax and look around as we prepare ourselves for our first overseas passage.
We're actually anchored off Horn Island, which is across the bay from Thursday Island. It's a sleepy little town with a supermarket, a post office and hamburger joint, and a really nice small pub. Not sure what else you need, really. In fact, though, there's also the totally fascinating Torres Strait Heritage Museum. Densely packed into a small building is an amazing and eclectic collection of artefacts, souvenirs, and descriptions of the history of the Torres Strait Islands. The museum explains who the Torres Strait Islander peoples are, their legends, and why they identify differently from other Australian First Nations people. There is much information in the museum regarding the pearling industry, which was once huge all along the north coast of Australia. We'll take another tour to a remaining pearl farm later in this episode. There is also a significant display relating to the Second World War. Thursday Island was a target for the Japanese due to its proximity to New Guinea. There is even the logbook of a Japanese pilot who bombed the islands.
I was amazed at how much history this tiny place has had. I had no idea that Japanese people had come here so long ago to search for the pearl oysters and had then stayed to live out their lives. I also loved the Torres Strait Islander people's legends and history. Their connection with the sea goes back so far.
This collection is well worth seeing. One can easily lose a few hours here, and we loved it. If we had one wish, it would be that the museum was perhaps a bit better curated, as many of the items have no description or provenance information, which if they did have, would have made many of the exhibits much more personal.
The captain noted a lobster boat anchored near us, so we went over to see if we could buy fresh lobster. The crew very happily sold us a lot of lobster less than a quarter of the price we would pay in the fish market in Sydney. The captain made lobster sashimi and lobster mornay. I made stir-fried lobster, and we frozen a bunch of lobster tails for later. Sometimes the cruising life has special benefits. So now we are off to TI. It's a bit rough with all this wind to take the dinghy all the way, so we hop on the regular ferry service. It's a very short ride across to TI, and in no time we are stepping foot on Thursday Island. There is a really helpful brief history carved into the pavement as we walk from the ferry to the town.
The town is located just back up the hill from the waterfront, which is a bit hard to understand. Whilst the town has charm, the real star is the natural harbour formed by the islands. It may be infested with crocodiles and therefore totally forbidden, but there's no denying the tropical island feel. What a difference it would make if the town faced the water. After talking to some of the local people, it became clear that apart from the permanent population, there are a lot of people who are on temporary posting here. These included health workers, state and federal government bureaucrats, engineering professionals, and many others.
The biggest impression from TI is the wonderful Torres Strait Islander people. The people of TI are friendly and welcoming.
Today we are going to
Friday Island,
which is next to
Thursday Island,
and not too far from.
Wednesday Island.
So they got very creative about names with the islands here.
Yeah.
But we're going there because there's still a bit of a pearl farm there. There's a Japanese fellow who runs the pearl farm. The last of what used to be hundreds of pearling activities here many, many moons ago. But this is a throwback and we want to check it out before it's gone. So, let's get going.
Yep, let's go.
Friday Island is not generally inhabited. However, the pearl farm has been here for 40 years, so it remains. The owner, Mr. Kazu, started the farm 40 years ago, and he's been making pearls ever since. After arrival, we are given a lovely Japanese lunch and a talk about the history of the farm. Then we make our way to the open-air laboratory where the pearl magic happens.
Nature pearls are almost always odd shapes. This is because the pearl will form around the material that goes into the oyster. Unless the material is perfectly round, then the pearl will not be round. So 99.9% of the nice round pearls that we buy today are cultured pearls. Mr. Kazu is an expert in making those cultured pearls. Mr. Kazu explains that the biology of the pearl oysters, they are much larger than the oyster that we normally eat. However, it is explained that the tissue of the mantle of the oyster has an excellent taste and is harvested commercially in other countries.
Mr. Kazu demonstrates the process of how a pearl is cultured. First, he carefully cuts some mantle off an oyster that is fully open. Once the oyster is open to the point that its adductor muscle is broken, it will die, so this oyster is used for most of the demonstration. When cultured pearls are made normally, the oyster remains alive.
He carefully cuts off part of the mantle and then snips this into tiny pieces. A piece will be grafted to the new oyster to encourage the growth of the liquid that will create the pearl. Here, he is putting the piece of the mantle into gonnet.
Then comes the nucleus, the bead that will make the oyster produce the pearl material. It is usually made from shell material and is perfectly round in order to make the pearl round. This is also placed in the gonad.
After the demonstration on the open oyster, Mr. Kazu shows us how it is done to a live oyster.
Can you see the inside?
The shell can only be opened a very small amount, so this work needs very good eyes and a steady hand.
Come down to here.
Mr. Kazu can process over 200 oysters per hour with this technique. It takes between 1 and 3 years to grow the pearls, depending on the designed size. After demonstration, it was time for some gift shop action, and I came away with some pearls and mother of pearl. We wandered around the island for a short while until it was time again to head back to Thursday Island. As we had been exploring the islands, the rally fleet has been slowly assembling in the anchorage. Very soon, the day had come for us to check out. We had another walk around TI and then presented ourselves at the Border Force office.
What an unusual feeling it is to actually go to a building to leave the country officially. We're so used to checking out being just one more part of the airport experience, but this is different.
When we did check out, they gave us a little gift pack. Nice.
We were also told to return to our boat immediately, interact with no one whilst on board, and to be out of port limits within 24 hours.
So, this was really happening.
Come the morning, and the yachts in the fleet picked up their anchors, and a procession started as we headed through the channels and out to sea. The amount of current between these islands is huge, as the two opposing seas empty into each other with the changing of the tides.
The timing was good for the current for a morning departure, but even still we were not prepared for how strong it was. The breeze was very light. At times, we nearly hit 11 knots as we were swept by the current through the channels.
Anywhere you go, give it on. Anywhere you say, anywhere.
Soon the islands were getting smaller behind us, and we realised that we really were sailing away from our country and on across nearly 700 nautical miles of sea to another country altogether.
The islands still protect us from the high winds and the waves, even though we could no longer see them. Tomorrow, we would be out of their lee, and the persisting trade wind would blow with a lot of its force and pile up the waves to make our life less comfortable. For now though, we sail smoothly into a picture-perfect sunset at the sea. How would we adapt to an extended sea passage? I wondered. We may be sailing for 5 days or more. Are we up to this? I guess we will find out. But at that moment, I was just enjoying the free spectacle.
There was no green flash.
Join with us on our next episode as we battle the wind and the seas and try to navigate through the endless Indonesian fishing fleets and their enormous nets.